Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 1.
It was supposed to be a simple late shift at the Burger King off Route 57, just like any other night for 19-year-old Cassie, who had been working there part-time while taking community college classes. The location wasn't the busiest, tucked between a shuttered gas station and a half-abandoned strip mall, and after 9 p.m., it was usually dead quiet. The only sounds were the buzzing of the fluorescent lights and the hum of the fryers. But for some reason, that night felt off. Maybe it was the way the dining room lights kept flickering, or how the ice machine spat out cubes even though no one touched it. Cassie chalked it up to electrical problems, maybe rodents. She didn't love the job, but she liked the solitude of closing up. The manager had left at 8:30, and she was the only one on the floor. The cook, Randy, was in the back cleaning the grills, and he always wore headphones, so she didn't bother him unless she had to. At 10:43 p.m., a black sedan pulled into the parking lot. Cassie saw it through the security monitor mounted above the register. The car idled for a full 2 minutes before a tall man stepped out, wearing a hooded jacket despite the summer heat. He didn't come inside. He just stood there, right outside the restaurant's front door, hands in his pockets, looking up at the roof. Cassie waited. Maybe he was meeting someone, maybe just high, but he never moved. She finally walked to the lobby, cracked the door open, and called out, "We close in 15 minutes." The man slowly turned his head toward her. His face was pale, gaunt, and his eyes looked wrong. They were glassy, too wide. He didn't blink. Then he asked, voice flat and emotionless, "Do you still have the kids' meals with the toys?" Cassie hesitated. We have the King Jr. meals, yeah." The man didn't respond. He turned back toward the lot, walked to his car, and drove away. Cassie locked the door after that. Something about his expression, his voice, made her skin crawl. She tried to shake it off and went back to wiping down the counter. But about 10 minutes later, the drive-thru buzzer went off. She walked over to the speaker and said, "Welcome to Burger King. How can I help you?" There was static. Then, very faintly, she heard a child's voice. "I'm still hungry." Cassie froze. She repeated her greeting. Nothing. Then came the sound of something, wet, like chewing, sloppy chewing and soft moaning. She turned to the monitor. No car at the drive-thru window. She leaned out the back door to check around the building. Nothing. She called out to Randy. No answer. She walked to the kitchen and found his headphones lying on the prep table, still playing music. But Randy was gone. The back door was wide open, her heart pounding. Cassie reached for her phone and called the manager, but the line rang once and then went dead. No dial tone, no bars. She went back into the dining room and nearly screamed. The man in the hooded jacket was inside, standing by the condiment station. There had been no sound, no door opening, no chime, just him. Cassie backed toward the kitchen slowly, not taking her eyes off him. "What do you want?" she asked, voice shaking. He tilted his head. "I used to work here too." "What?" "They closed it, long time ago, but it keeps opening, over and over." She tried the back door again. It was jammed, like it had been welded shut. When she turned around, the man was gone. Only there was something else, a wet trail leading into the walk-in freezer. Cassie, trembling, opened it. Inside was Randy, sprawled on the floor, eyes open and glazed over, his mouth stuffed with a King Jr. toy, not one they currently carried. It was old, plastic faded, from a discontinued set from 2004. Cassie gagged and stumbled backward. The freezer door slammed shut behind her. There was no handle on the inside. For hours she screamed, pounded, cried. No one came. When the morning shift arrived, the store was empty. Cassie was found inside the freezer, unconscious, severely dehydrated, mumbling nonsense about a man with dead eyes and kids' meals that wanted more. The security footage from that night? All static. But once, just once, there's a single frame that shows a man standing in the dining room, his face inches from the camera, smiling, holding something in his hand, a small plastic toy, still covered in blood.
Story number 2.
It happened in the fall of 2013, in a small town in Ohio, at a Burger King that sat off a rarely traveled stretch of highway. The kind of location that seemed built for convenience, but rarely saw a crowd. Locals joked it was haunted, but more out of habit than belief. Just a greasy, dimly lit building with flickering fluorescent lights and a constant hum that came from somewhere in the ceiling. But what happened there that October turned the joke into something darker. The night manager, a man named Chris, had worked there for years. He was in his late 30s, quiet, dependable, and mostly kept to himself. It was the 11 p.m. shift, one of the slowest nights of the week. Just Chris, a teenage fry cook named Lily, and an older janitor named Marvin. It was the usual routine: clean the grills, prep for the morning, count the registers. Around 11:30, a car pulled into the lot. That alone was strange. It wasn't just that they were closing in 30 minutes. It was the way the car moved, slowly circling the lot once before parking in the farthest space from the building. The headlights stayed on. Chris watched it for a moment, then turned his attention back to the inventory sheet. But when Lily peeked out the drive-through window, she froze. That guy's wearing a mask," she said. Chris walked over and looked. Sure enough, there was a man standing just outside the car. He wasn't wearing a Halloween mask. It looked homemade, stitched together from what appeared to be strips of leather. No visible eye holes, just a rough slit for a mouth. He didn't move, just stood there, staring toward the restaurant. "Probably some weirdo trying to scare us," Chris muttered, trying to shake it off. He told Marvin to lock the lobby doors just in case. Marvin shuffled off with his mop and didn't return for a while. Too long, actually. 15 minutes passed. No sign of Marvin. The man in the mask was now closer, right at the edge of the lot, near the dumpsters. But what made Chris's stomach turn was that the car was now gone. "Did he leave?" Lily asked. Chris didn't know. He hadn't heard it drive off. They tried calling Marvin's cell. No answer. Chris grabbed the flashlight from the supply closet and stepped outside. The cold hit hard, and the parking lot was empty, but the dumpster gate was slightly open. He walked over slowly, calling Marvin's name. The moment he opened the gate, the flashlight flickered. That hum from the ceiling? It was outside now, low and vibrating through the concrete. He called again. Nothing. Then he saw it. Marvin's mop snapped in half, lying in a dark puddle. Something moved in the corner of his vision, a fast blur. The flashlight died. Chris backed up, heart hammering in his chest. He ran inside and slammed the door shut, locking it behind him. "We're calling the cops," he told Lily, but she was already dialing. As she waited for the line to connect, they both heard it, a soft tapping sound from the back hallway. It wasn't loud. It was delicate, like fingernails against tile. Chris picked up a broom, pathetic as a weapon, and crept toward the sound. The hallway lights flickered and buzzed. At the end was the storage freezer. The tapping was louder now. Lily stayed behind the counter, whispering to the 911 operator. When Chris turned the corner, the freezer door was open. Inside, crouched in the far corner, was the man in the mask. Not standing, squatting, head tilted at an unnatural angle. His hand was pressed against the wall, making that tapping sound with one long, dirty fingernail. Chris ran. He grabbed Lily and they locked themselves in the office. Police arrived 10 minutes later. When they searched the restaurant, there was no sign of the masked man. But the freezer had handprints smeared on the walls, dozens of them, some old, some new, some so small they could have belonged to a child. Marvin was never found. His name faded into rumor and local legend. The Burger King shut down within a year. No explanation, no warning, just boarded up one day. Some say the building still hums at night, even though there's no power. Others say you can see a man in a stitched leather mask standing in the weeds behind the dumpster, waiting for another slow night, another shift change, another door left unlocked. The funny thing is, Chris never quit. He just disappeared a few years later, vanished like Marvin. And the hum? Some say it follows you. You hear it in your walls, in your vents, after you've visited that stretch of highway, like something clinging to you, waiting for a quiet night.
Story number 3.
It was a late Friday night at a Burger King on the outskirts of a small town, the kind of place where the flickering neon sign was the only thing keeping the dark from swallowing the street whole. The employees had mostly clocked out, leaving just a skeleton crew. 2 young workers, Jess, a college student working her first job, and Mark, a guy who seemed to have been there forever, quiet and a little too intense. The manager had left an hour ago after complaining about weird noises and a strange feeling in the air. Jess brushed it off as just the stress of the job. Around midnight, the power suddenly flickered and died. The restaurant was plunged into darkness, the emergency lights casting eerie, weak glows over the greasy counters and empty tables. The automatic doors locked themselves with a heavy clang. Jess's phone had no signal. Mark, unusually calm, told her not to worry and started moving toward the back to check the fuse box. Jess followed, her heart pounding harder with every step. The back room was cluttered with boxes and leftover food, the shadows playing tricks in the dim light of Mark's flashlight. He was muttering about the electrical system being ancient and possibly overloaded. As he fiddled with the panel, a chilling cold seemed to seep in from nowhere. Jess shivered, feeling like the room itself was watching her. Suddenly, the speakers crackled to life, and a distorted version of the Burger King jingle echoed through the restaurant. It was warped and slowed, like a ghostly lullaby, but underneath it, there was something else, a whisper. Jess strained to listen, but couldn't make out the words. Mark's face went pale. He said the place had been rumored to be haunted since the old owners abandoned it years ago. Supposedly, a worker had disappeared one night, never found, leaving only faint screams recorded on a security tape no one wanted to watch. Before Jess could respond, the back door slammed shut on its own. They were trapped. The emergency lights flickered violently, casting grotesque shadows across the walls, and the whispering turned into a low, guttural growl. Jess wanted to run, but the exit was blocked. Then the walk-in freezer door creaked open slowly, revealing pitch blackness inside. A cold breath hit Jess's face as a pair of glowing eyes appeared in the darkness. Mark grabbed her arm, whispering to move away, but the eyes followed. The freezer door slammed shut, and the growling turned into a deafening roar in their ears. The room seemed to distort, stretching and twisting like a nightmare. Suddenly, the security cameras around the restaurant flickered back on, showing static-filled images on the monitors, images of a shadowy figure moving silently through the kitchen, dragging something behind it. Jess's phone suddenly buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You can't leave until you join us." The lights cut out again, and when they came back, Mark was gone. Jess screamed, running toward the front counter, only to find a single greasy burger sitting there, steaming and fresh like it had just been made, except no one was around. Her screams were swallowed by the silence of the empty restaurant. The Burger King's neon sign flickered once more, casting a blood-red glow over the windows as Jess vanished without a trace. The next morning, the morning shift arrived to find the doors unlocked, the power back on, and no sign of Jess or Mark. The only clue was the faint smell of burning burgers lingering in the air, and the security footage showing 2 employees entering after hours, but none ever leaving.